These are the 6 things that when I figured them out, it took my agency from sub 2 million per year all the way to 10 million plus. Before figuring these things out, my agency was stuck. I was in the hamster wheel and I didn't really understand what my clients wanted. Therefore, they weren't sticking around for very long. For me, the breakthrough happened when I was talking to a person that was doing product testing. So they would do focus groups on how to make sure that a product was good for market, ready for market. And I asked him, it's like, well, can't you just do enough focus groups to make sure that you create the right product? And what he told me was, well, look, it's actually impossible to focus group your way into a good product or service. Because if you ask people exactly what they want and give them exactly what they asked for, they will still think that that product is not good enough, because ultimately the truth is that people don't know what they want until they've experienced it. And even if they have experienced it, they can't tell you exactly why they loved it. After that, I became completely obsessed with retaining clients. And this is why the monthly recurring revenue model breaks down. These are the 6 things that I figured out that enabled that growth to happen by retaining clients longer. So these things that I'm about to cover are more of like a deep dive into how to generate maximum client value to retain clients for as long as possible. So if you're watching this right now, I'd encourage you to grab a Word doc, open it up, and take some notes while I go over these for some key takeaways that you want to do as homework later. Why did I want to fix churn? Like, what were the things that were preventing my agency from growing? It was really in that we did have this recurring revenue model, but we didn't have a way to really extend lifetime value for longer. And when you actually dig into the numbers, like, this is what you're actually going to find, right? And the truth is that when you're looking at monthly churn over here, is that you can have the exact same sales per month at the same price per month, and the only thing that you change is the churn from high to low, and this is monthly churn, and that is going to be what in relation to what your actual annual revenue is going to be. So for example, if you're churning 12% of your client base per month and you have 4 closes at an average price of 4K each, your agency is going to end up at 1.6 million. If you do the exact same thing on a sales basis and on an average price basis, and you bring 12% down to 6, for example, you are going to hit 3.2. So basically what happens is every time you cut churn in half, you double your top line revenue. So in the example here, if you go all the way from 6 down to 3, you're going to be somewhere in between here at 6.4 million, so on and so forth. And the secret is that really large agencies have a maximum of 2.5% monthly churn. Some of them even go as low as sub 1% monthly churn. And so what people are generally trying to do, and what I was trying to do, was trying to get more and more sales to try to fix my revenue problem when I had to actually fix my turnover problem, my client churn problem. And when it comes down to it, churn is usually a lack of 3 macro things that I'm then going to break down into separate parts to make this actionable. So churn is a lack of, number 1, results. What did we actually promise them? Like, which is the logic center of our client's brain. Experience, which hits the emotional part of our client's brain. And then insights, which I categorize as aha moments, or that feeling of payoff where they're like, oh, that's why this thing didn't work. And these 3 things, if present, make it so that you retain clients for a really, really long time. So I want to break this down and why this matters. The one thing you have to first realize is that it's not about if you won, it's actually about why you won. So a lot of people win, meaning like things are going well, we're hitting our targets and all this other stuff, right? And people are looking to see if they won, but they're not looking at why they won. And inspecting why you won or did not win actually matters way, way more. Okay. You have to ask questions and you have to be very curious. So we have to understand what it is that we actually do. Like, what did we do to generate these wins? What did the client do on their own side to help us generate a win for them, right? So like, was it their assets? Was it their brand? Was the CRO really good on their website? Was the product just like differentiated, right? Like, how much work was the client side doing before we even got ourselves involved with them as an agency? So what they did, and we need to reverse engineer this so that that way we can keep creating these wins for not only that client but other clients, because if they're missing some of the core elements that we've seen here, for example, like assets, brand, CRO, product, etc., we need to be able to educate and walk that client through how to make these things more robust. So the winning formula isn't just limited to the things that we do. Like, for example, we could just be PPC only or CRO only. We need to also take stock and almost create an inventory of all the things that influence the likelihood that we are going to generate a win for the client, and basically get that all into one piece of paper so that that way we can qualify each client and tell them, like, look, for us to help you win, you also need to take care of the following, right? So this is what they did, and we need to reverse engineer this. Number three, how to make it replicable and repeatable. So I already kind of said a little bit of this, right? We need to basically reverse engineer what they're doing, what each one of our winning clients are doing, and why it works the way that it works to make it repeatable and replicable, meaning that we need to break this down into internal training and show our staff how to overcome any situation, right? Meaning, like, if this client doesn't have this, we need to do this. If they don't have this, we need to do this over and over and over again, and also educate our staff on how to talk to the client to resolve these so that the client understands, like, hey, this is part of what we do, this is part of what we don't do, and even if we don't do it, we need this key ingredient to help you generate the results that we need to generate, right? And remember, what ultimately constitutes as an upsell is the opportunities to fill in the missing pieces that they need to generate client results. So opportunities to upsell are the missing pieces to client results, meaning what are they missing to generate that key result? That is what we should be upselling with clients. Don't upsell them on things that don't actually generate them more business results, the key results that they are looking for. Here are the 6 things you have to do to sustain high retention in an MRR model. By the way, even if you are on a project basis, these things work too. They just work on a much longer time span. This in an MRR basis works much, much faster because we can generate retention month over month. So what are the 6 things? Well, number one, we need to actually generate the outcome that we initially sold them on. This is non-negotiable. We have to do this. Why? If they give us the money that we charge them, they expect the result that we promised them in the sales call. And if we don't deliver that, we're not going to retain the client for very long. This is where I see people all the time lose clients between months 3 and month 6. So clients only last 3 to 6 months if you're not delivering this. If you have this problem, this is the number one problem to fix. Okay. Number two, consistency of communication. So having clear service standards internally. We're going to break down what this is because people generally have some of this. It's generally not complete and it's generally not as in depth as it needs to be, nor are they repeating this internally at their agencies so that everyone knows what these are. Number three, we need to know what is next, happening next week, next month, way before it happens as the client. So we need to show clients, like, look, this is what's going to happen in the next 3 weeks, the next month, the next 3 months. Having that clear roadmap and that feeling of progression by putting that roadmap in front of them. This is like a 50% value of product thing. And this is also a 50% emotions and expectations. So it's like it's that line blur between the logical and emotional brain that we need to put in front of the client so that they get this feeling of progression ultimately. Okay. Number four, a great experience. So like this is all about making them feel special and generating that emotional fulfillment. Okay. There's certain things that we as an agency need to do. And look, I'm going to say this right now. It's sort of unfair because clients believe that we should be more fun than all of their other suppliers. For whatever reason, people have this bias with marketing agencies that engaging with an agency should be fun. Well, that's a built-in expectation, and we should really ensure that we are meeting that expectation as much as a lot of the time it will be unstated. Number five, education on your field of expertise. So, like, look, they want to learn and understand what's going on. Like, why are we doing the things that we're doing? We don't need to teach them in super deep technical basis what it is that we're doing, but they need to understand the foundations, right? And we're going to get into what level that really is and how we're going to do it internally. And lastly, we need to lead them, which means that we actually are delivering what they want, which is insights. And insights come in three different levels. They come at a marketing level, at a business level, and at an industry level. Okay. So let's kick this off with number one. So number one is the outcome that you actually promise them. So this is why they bought from you. And it's a core thing that people want, whether it's PPC, creative, a website, whatever have you. This is the core of like what you actually promise them. And like, look, this is super obvious, right? But if we don't deliver what we said we were going to deliver, we're not going to grow and we're going to turn over clients. This is where agencies usually start, where you obsess with what the value is that you're actually rendering the client. Okay. And if you do this really, really well, you can scale anywhere from, 50K top line to all the way to 200K top line before you become obsessed with other elements of it. As long as you deliver really, really well and you have the right business model, this will actually take you pretty far. But here's the thing, I can't weigh into this a lot because every single business's product, every single agency's product is pretty different, right? So you know what your agency promises, and what you have to do is be very honest with yourself about, do I actually deliver what I promise in sales meetings? And if not, we need to either tune the message during sales, or we need to tune the product to deliver what we're saying in sales, and or meet in the middle of both. Number two, consistency of communication. This is all about clear service standards. This is where agencies really misunderstand what this actually means. Okay. Like number one, this seems really obvious, but it's not, because you'd be blown away by how few agencies actually have these written down. Number one, in general, and number two, complete. There are even fewer agencies where client facing staff can actually summarize what the standards are, meaning that they can't follow them instinctually because they actually don't know what they are, right? So if somebody can't summarize it that is client facing, these things are not being done to the level that they should be done. You need to do this. We need to first write down the standards. And what do these look like? Well, what are the escalation protocols, both internal and external? Like, what happens when clients are unhappy? What happens when we are not meeting our product service standards internally? Like, what do we do about that? Number one. Number two, response times by channel. So like Slack, what's the turnaround on Slack messages? What's the turnaround on emails? What's the turnaround on calls or texts if you do those, right? Every different platform should have service standards around response times. Number three, communication tone guide. So like, how do we write things? Are there specific words we don't use? What is the tonality of it, right? Like, we can have these tone documents of how we communicate on different channels that are brand centric to our agency. Okay. Number four, an email bank. This is vastly underutilized. Having a bunch of email templates by client situation can save account managers, and especially new people to the agency, huge amounts of time, because understanding the tone and getting it right seems like a really daunting thing to do. By having an email bank, we can give people a bunch of templates up front that sound like us, that they can customize to their own needs, and creates that consistency from a brand standards perspective and communication. Where communication takes place internally by subject. So like, I know that this is not necessarily client standards, but how we handle information internally affects how we handle communication externally. So having clear understanding of where communication takes place by subject internally, by platform, meaning like Slack versus project management system, versus email versus all these other systems, we need to know how to communicate. For example, communicating in Slack is great, but giving feedback on some piece of creative or some piece of, you know, client deliverable should probably be in the project management system rather than in Slack, because otherwise it's going to get lost very, very easily. Okay. This one's a pretty standard one, but there's not enough writing on this. Client standards, right? Like when it comes to check-ins. So what are we doing? Weekly, monthly, quarterly, and what are the differences? And we need to actually educate the client on that. What's the difference between an ad hoc check-in, maybe a weekly versus a monthly versus a quarterly? Like what can they expect out of this, right? What to do when a non-primary point of contact communicates with the agency. Like, look, this happens all the time. Somebody signs off. It might be the director, it might be the owner. They say your primary point of contact is this person moving forward. Maybe it's a marketing manager. Then the project starts, and all of a sudden, this person comes in and gives feedback through the non-standard channel because we already know who the point of contact is. Well, do we have policy about what to do about this? Have we educated our client's team or anyone that's client facing on how to deal with this situation? Okay. Emergency protocols. Again, same thing. What constitutes an emergency? How do we deal with it? How do we go about it? Again, depending on the type of agency, this can change greatly. Last but definitely not least, code of ethics. Okay. What are the ethics of dealing with a customer? How do we talk about good news, bad news, medium news, all of the above? How do we approach hard subjects with the client and remain true to our brand promise and to our ethical compass? Okay. Here's the thing. Once you're done all of these, you have to repeat them more than you'd like. You have to retrain people every 4 to 6 months on this forever. At the very beginning, you should retrain people on this every 3 to 4 months and then move into 6 months later down the road. But you basically have to retrain people on these every quarter for a while until it becomes second nature. Okay. If you don't do this, the quality of your communication with clients will go down. And when quality of communication goes down, so does retention, right? For retention to stay nice and high, we need communication to be very, very predictable. Number three, clients need to know what is happening in the next weeks and or months well before it happens. Okay. So there's actually two elements here that we need to address, which is having number one, a clear roadmap, and number two, engineering the feeling of progression. Okay. What do I mean by each of these? Okay. When we have a clear roadmap, that's about the onboarding, right? What people can expect at week one, week two, three, four, etc. Month one, two, three, four, etc. Okay. That's the roadmap. Having a roadmap in of itself doesn't actually create and or engineer the feeling of progression. The feeling of progression comes when we hit key milestones at or earlier than first expected. Okay. And it's when people can see things moving, meaning it's not just about launching the project, it's about obtaining the effect behind it. Okay. So it's when the needle moves. They feel like they're getting where they ultimately want to get to. And if we prepare people for that, saying, like, first we're going to be able to achieve this milestone, then this milestone, then this milestone, if we lay it out correctly, we can generate this feeling of progression. There's a very simple way of doing this. For example, if you say, hey, when we get to 100, whatever, leads, units, whatever it is, this is the ultimate goal per month, right? Well, let's institute some sub milestones inside of that. So if we institute sub goal 1, 2, 3, and then the ultimate goal 4, now we have 4 points to celebrate rather than just one. This actually creates the feeling of progression by setting these interim milestones and interim goals. Okay. We need to be very conscious about this, and we need to understand how long these things are going to take to actually produce. That way, people feel on the client side like we're constantly delivering wins for them. So we need to engineer this feeling of progression. Okay. What people generally get wrong on the first point around the clear roadmap is that the roadmap only exists during onboarding, and the onboarding is too short, meaning 5 to 10 days maximum. Okay. And then afterwards, it's sort of like free for all. Like there aren't clear expectations around what that roadmap should look like, what we're waiting on, what are those milestones, right? The second problem with the first point is that the roadmap isn't long enough. Again, 5 or 10 days, then the free for all, right? In my opinion, the roadmap should be 3 to 6 months long at all times and then refreshed quarterly. Okay. So this means that every 3 months, we're planning out the next six at minimum, ideally nine. And then 3 months from now, we do the exact same thing. So there is a little bit of overlap of like replanning, right? And basically taking the learnings of the last 3 months to edit the next 3 months and so on and so forth, right? So the idea is create this, 90 to 180-day plan every 3 months. You optimize, amend the overlapping months that you're basically representing again. And then you create the brand new 3 months or 6 months behind it iteratively. The best way to get this kicked off is during the actual onboarding of the client by being very clear about the first 3 months. And then when we hit that 3 month mark, plan out the next 90 to 180 days, meaning the next 3 to 6 months right after that. How this manifests in the first 3 months is that you want to set certain things in motion and you want to have certain amounts of contact points of a certain kind. And this is what you see down here. You want contact points to be 35% around expectation setting. You want experience to be about 30%, and you want education to be about 35% of the touch points you have with a client in the first 3 months of their journey with us. Okay. And look, I've broken this down in a different video, but I'm going to show this to you high level right now. Right. Here's the 100 day. I call it the 100 days of onboarding. There'll be a link in the description below where you can go in and I will show you step by step how this works. But basically all of the things highlighted in this light blue are expectation setting. All of the things in this blue purple are the experience items, and all the education items are in green, and the ones that are clear are a combination of all three. But what matters is having these into a Gantt chart that actually show our staff on how to deliver against these things and when to deliver against these things in a standardized way. Because if we try to do this on an ad hoc basis where it's different for each and every client, it's like we're gonna overwhelm our staff. It's not possible. Okay. So what we need to do is reverse engineer how the client works and deliver this onto them, right? So that way they know what to expect at all times, but more importantly, our staff knows what to expect, because there's no way we can deliver what the client expects unless we train our staff on what they can expect to deliver onto the client. It will generate better upside for you. Number three, during the first meeting, send them their favorite drink or snack. So again, if you polled them like through a survey, or if you got to know them a bit during onboarding, for the first monthly meeting, figure out what their favorite coffee order is or tea or whatever have you, door dash it to them. It's a nice unexpected touch, okay? And it goes a lot further than you think it will, because people will realize that you're paying attention to them. It makes them feel important, okay? Number four, handwritten notes. Again, these also go further than you think. Send these during birthdays and other special occasions, or even during onboarding. Tell them why you're excited to work with them, right? Tell them what you're excited about in terms of like working with them on their account, and what you see possible for them, right? There are online services that will do handwritten notes for you. So it's not like you actually have to do them handwritten. They just need to appear handwritten, okay? These things make a difference. One off the beaten path that I used to do, and it's one of those things that I saw great effect, but you need to really stay on top of it, is actually sending client trophies. So sending clients gifts and or awards for excellence. Meaning, look, on the client side, you're probably dealing with the main point of contact who's not the owner. And even if it is the owner, like this works too, just not as well. But people that are the main point of contact usually are people that like they don't know how they're doing, right? It's like the expectations set of them might be set properly internally or not, you don't really know. But more often than not, they're not really like steady targets that they have. But you can give them awards for certain milestones. So, for example, we could hit the 100th lead with them, or hitting like a really high ROAS target, or other memorable occasions. It's like, hey, we doubled your ROAS from the first engagement. Thank you so much for X, Y, and Z. Like literally send them a little award from like a trophy shop or whatever have you, being like, hey, you're in the top 10% of ROASs for your industry, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that way, when their boss comes around to their desk and they ask, what is this award for? It's like, oh, this is what this award is for. This is why we won it. Not only is it nice for them to have, but it also actually shows that the work that they're doing with us is paying off. Okay. Client gifting is one of those things that people do in a shallow way. If we just take a little bit of creativity and go deep enough, this actually generates huge amounts of results on retention and referrals. So number 4 is all about delivering a great experience. And I get it. I already talked about this a bit, but I want to get into the weeds on this one because like no, there isn't enough variance and there isn't enough originality in how people are actually delivering this. And by the way, there's just not that many ways to do it, but it's important to talk about it. So a great experience is a requirement for an agency. And I think I was talking about this earlier because clients expect agencies to have great client experiences because they're agencies. It's just a bias of the client. It is what it is. To be clear, in 2025, relationship is table stakes. It might get you an extra chance if we screw up, but it's not going to buy us forgiveness for the client in the long run. A great experience is the sum of the parts of how we deliver against the client. Okay. But I'm going to focus on this step on how we make the clients feel. Here's some tactical examples of how to actually do this. So number 1, getting to know our clients closely, right? We can do surveys and well-timed questions during onboarding to get to know our main points of contact, figure out their birthday, anniversary, kids' birthdays, etc., like any milestones, hobbies they may have, right? We're going to use some of this information later. For example, in gifting, right? So if we figure out the hobbies that they have, sports they watch, things they collect, when we do gifting, we should be giving tailored gifts to those individuals so that it becomes meaningful. Giving every single client the same gift is not meaningful. We need to have one of one gifts. Is this an extra cost in terms of our time? Yes, absolutely. But spending more than you think is prudent and more time than you think is prudent to figure this out is going to go a long, long way beyond relationship. The most common mistake that I see in gifting is that people always gift the agency owner, right? So they gift it to the owner of the client, right? So instead of giving it to the actual point of contact, here's the truth. If you are gifting to the owner of the business that is your client, they also get a ton of stuff. Every Christmas, they probably get like 10 to 20 gift baskets, et cetera, et cetera. It just becomes me like honestly they just have a pile of this stuff. Don't send the gift there. Send the gift to the person who receives the least of these directly. And who is that? Generally our point of contact. And surprise, you will get a lot more referrals from the middle manager slash frontline employee that is your point of contact than sending it to the owner of the business that you're dealing with. Okay. And when they move on from their current job, they will recommend you to their next employer. Matters a lot. You're going to get more referrals this way. Always gift the point of contact. Number 5, education in your field of expertise. So the client really wants to learn and understand what's going on. Okay. They don't want to know exactly how to do what it is you do, but they just want to understand what's happening. Okay. And we can take this opportunity to take it a little bit further to help them understand what a win looks like. So, this is the biggest reason that agency and clients don't see eye to eye, right? It's because they understand fundamentally different things. And there's two key parts of education within an agency, okay? There's the internal aspect, and then there's the external aspect. So I'm going to break this down. The internal aspect is for staff internally at the agency to better understand what the client wants and to get better at their craft to deliver better results. Okay. If we don't help them get better results for clients, aka just general training, over time, results will deteriorate. But number two, helping them understand what the clients actually want, it's a training in of itself, which is here's the goals that we try to hit internally because we know that it leads to results, but here's how clients see that, right? So we need to train them on how to communicate with clients and communicate in a way that is meaningful to clients, meaning what are the actual results that clients want. Okay. Externally, we need to help the client understand how it is that we deliver the work. Okay. So the internal two parts, what to get better at and how to get better at what we do, how to talk to clients about this stuff. Externally, helping clients understand how it is that we as an agency deliver the work, right? And some basic technical knowledge. Okay. What you need to understand is that the second one, the external part, is just as important as the first one, the internal part. Okay. If the client can't perceive the win we generate for them, the relationship is just not going to last long. Okay. If we think it's a win and they don't think it's a win, we have this problem. And the problem is that we're not training the client on how to judge the work that we're doing. Okay. Similarly, if we don't train our staff on how the clients look at the results that they want to attain, retention's inevitably going to suffer. So we need to have both sides of the equation right. It's only when the agency takes it on itself to train the staff and the client that we can actually deepen the relationship through mutual understanding. Okay? Each side needs to be trained on how to understand each other better. We need to train our staff on how to understand the client better. We need to train the client on how to understand the agency better. And we need to try to meet these two things in the middle. And as senior leadership of an agency, we are the agents that bring both sides together through standardized training, standardized onboarding, etc. Okay. On the external side, so I'm going to ignore the internal agency side for a second and just talk about external. We need to train the client at minimum on 7 things. And this is a lot of different things. Okay. Number one, how our service actually works, timelines, when results will come, progression, like key milestones, like all of this thing. We need to train them on how our service works. We also need to train them on what our client standards are. So how fast are we going to respond? When can they expect meetings? What they should come prepared with during those meetings, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we need to train them on how to behave in those contact points with us. Okay. We also need to teach them how to communicate with us on an ongoing basis on the actual work. So, like, what's the process of revisions or giving feedback or whatever else have you? Okay. So, this is how to communicate with us on an ongoing basis and the feedback item 3 and 4. 5, we need to give them a foundational level of technical expertise so that they can at least talk about it this intelligently inside of their own organization. Because when we train the primary point of contact on this stuff, they need to be able to tell people internally at their own company, like, this is what they're doing and this is why, at a very foundational level. It doesn't need to be technically deep, but this goes a long way and it helps them see potential wins in the future. So when we generate a win, they know it's a win with before we even bring it up to them. It's like, oh, I saw this result. It was great. Okay. This takes me to the next one, which is industry standards, right? If we show them what wins are, right? We also have to tell them what the industry is doing. Because if we're being the industry, they need to know about it before it happens. Okay. So having these industry standards and benchmarks that we can educate them on and show them, like, hey, 10% of people are in your industry are achieving this, 5%, et cetera, et cetera. It's going to make those wins when we attain them that much more meaningful when they know about the benchmarks beforehand. If we tell them about the benchmarks after the fact, they don't feel as good. So the timing on this matters a lot more than you may think. Okay. Last and definitely not least, what are other winning clients doing? So actually generating some training and education for the client around this is what our winning clients are doing without showing that client work, because obviously, you don't want any confidentiality issues, but you can reverse engineer what the winning clients are doing and create a list and or multiple trainings around this is what the winning clients are doing, just so you know. That way it's easier to set expectations with them in the future about potential upsells, things that they're potentially missing, but also things that maybe we don't even do that they need to strengthen that will help the work that we're doing for them. So that way, as we're doing it, if they're taking care of these things that we don't do, the results are going to be better and better and better because we're working on both sides to the same common goal. All right, so number 6, we need to lead the client, right? So we actually need to lead them, which means that they want insights. The client says, I want your leadership. I want you to lead us. You didn't lead us. What they actually are talking about are insights. And insights come in 3 levels: marketing level, business level, and industry level. Okay. What this actually means for them is the feeling of payoff or the incoming payoff. Okay. So they're like, oh, that's why XYZ isn't working, et cetera, et cetera. It's a feeling like that aha moment. Okay. And this is where they're really seeing that light at the end of the tunnel where it all makes sense and the things just click. Okay. So to break this down further, insights are when we can explain to the client why something is or is not working and what we need to do about it to make it work either consistently or in the future. We have to show clients a missing piece that they've been searching for. So they're like, I don't understand why this isn't working or why this isn't happening or why we're not generating the goals. And you show them it's like this one thing. This is the missing piece. And if we get that and we optimize it, it's all going to click into place. Okay, that's an insight. A different example of an insight is also we have to help the clients understand the market or their competitors in a deeper context. So it's like, why is this happening to us when we see other people succeeding? What's that gap? If we can figure that out and reverse engineer it and show it to the client, like this is the missing piece, this is the gap, this is why they're able to do this, and we can't quite do that yet. Like we can't mimic them. When you show that to a client, they're going to be like, oh, okay, that makes sense. That's an insight. Okay. It's an insight is also when we show the client where the industry is going and how to get ahead of it. So hey, just so you know, based on like all of these data points and we're seeing these trends in the marketplace, this is where the market is likely to go in the next 6 to 12 months, and this is how we can position ahead of that and reap the rewards of this, right? So again, we are being future facing, helping the client understand something that is yet to happen and how to capitalize on an opportunity. Okay. Lastly, and definitely not least, because this is actually what matters, insights are when we show the client how their customers buy from them at a deeper level than their current level of understanding. So when we can tell a client, this is why your customers are buying from you, and they didn't understand that until that moment, that is the best type of insight that you can give a client, because the outcome of that is that there's certain things that we're going to be able to do to capitalize on that knowledge that wasn't being done before, to capitalize on it, aka turn it into more results for them. When we give predictable insights to clients on a ongoing basis, we become their strategic partner. When we become their strategic partner, we are very hard to fire. So we have to do this in order to retain clients for the long term. We have to consistently lead them through insights. Suppliers are easily fired. We do not want to be a supplier. And this is the number one thing that predicts whether or not you fall in the strategic partner category or in the supplier category. You never want to fall in the supplier category. How do we bring this all together? We need to understand that there's some form of iteration that is required to get to the optimal point. And the only way to figure that out is to establish like a very clear feedback loop. And this is what in my opinion, is the optimal feedback loop. Okay. First, we start off with generating a net promoter score. Okay. If you don't know what this is, look it up. It's about surveying the clients on a consistent basis. Once they fill this out, we call them for a feedback call that is deeper than the net promoter score. And then, depending on the score, if it's, like a 9 or a 10, We ask them for upsells, referrals, and testimonials. Okay. All other feedback, including the higher ranking feedback, goes into communication to the rest of the team. So we communicate the feedback to the rest of the team that helped generate the actual results. Okay. Whether they be creative, digital, etc. And then the team figures out what to do with that communication slash information we got from the client, and we amend our processes or our services to better meet the client needs in the future. And then the loop starts over and over again. This is the client communication flywheel. Okay. This is how we get better at delivering against clients. And the 6 things I just mentioned are the core themes that we need to explore with the client at different life stages of the client journey with us. Okay. And why that matters is this. This graph here at the bottom, this is a visual representation of retention all the way up to referral. So how happy does a client need to be? Well, it's pretty simple. If they're below this retention line here, if they're anywhere below here, we're going to lose the client. They're going to churn out. Okay. How far is retention from testimonial? Well, it's not too far. Why? Testimonials are based off of people feeling like they got the value that they paid for, and maybe a little bit more. So we exceeded their expectations of what they originally bought. Okay. Further in, they need to be really happy for them to be upsold to. So, like if we say, give them new ideas, hey, we could also do this, we could also do this. Well, that's a lot further from the retention line, right? And even further from the upsell line is the referral line. It's all the way up here. Okay. So the actual distance between retention and referral is massive. So what I see generally with agencies is that their retention might be good, but it's not great. And the biggest difference maker is how many referrals and upsells they're getting. Because remember, there's legitimate reasons for clients leaving us. But if we can replace all the clients that leave us for legitimate reasons, like they sold their business, et cetera, right? With referrals and upsells, our churn, our rate of client turnover is technically zero because we upsold all of the missing revenue that we lost through legitimate reasons. And this is a requirement for your agency to grow sustainably. Okay. This is the primary difference between agencies that are doing 10 million plus and those that are not. They are replacing all of the lost clients through these other means because they're not trying to just retain clients. The mindset is that they're trying to generate referrals from everyone. Okay. Because if you're shooting for this up here, okay, 1 second. It's really simple. If you're shooting for this up here, like this level of service, this level where you're guaranteed to generate a referral, if you miss, maybe you end up at upsell, maybe you end up at testimonial range. Like this is the range that you might operate at if you miss referral. If you shoot for retention and you miss even slightly, it's like, well, you're going to lose clients. And that is the primary difference. Bigger agencies are shooting for referral as the standard versus other people shooting for retention or testimonial. Because when you miss down here, you lose clients immediately. When you miss up here, you still might get upsells. You still probably are going to get testimonials. Okay? And that's the big difference. What are the key takeaways here? Really, what I want you to walk away with is that the MRR model doesn't work on its own. It needs to be supported by all of these other things. Because remember, product is only one out of 6 of the elements. Okay. The core product only accounts for 20 to 30% of what the client is actually looking for because they're looking for all of these other things, right? And most importantly, the sale does not stop at the signature. We need to pretend as though we are constantly selling the client to keep them. And I'm not talking about upsells, I'm not talking about referrals. We need to keep on selling them on the fact that they have made a wise choice and are continuing to make a wise choice with sticking with us as their agency partner. If we do these 3 things and keep these 3 things in mind by doing the 6 core things, that I talked about before, we are going to have a really, really nice agency that is doing a lot of top line revenue. So the key takeaway here is that you need to break down each one of these 6 things into the pieces that I talked about, right? Identify those areas of weakness and or the gaps where we don't have those items in place currently, and go and actually start filling those gaps, okay? Now, if you want to shortcut all of that and just work with me instead, that's a way to go. The link to contact me will be in the description. Feel free and book a time with us where we basically go over all of this and more, help you get maximum client retention, maximum client referrals, and eliminate all the hard work off of you, the agency owner's shoulders, and put it onto your staff, holding people accountable properly.